could improve conditions and help end poverty. Yet, it's been largely ignored. That resource is women. In many of the world's poorest communities, women are denied a significant role. So often their talent and potential remain untapped.
I am powerful.
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 It's a source of power the world can no longer afford to overlook. She has the power to change her world. You have the power to help her do it. Call or visit care.org.
Hello, I'm Tax Commissioner Arthur Ferdinand, and this is Tax Matters.
First, fair, and accurate. This is Tax Matters with Arthur Ferdinand.
Welcome to Tax Matters, the program designed to keep you informed about your tax dollars, how we collect them, what we use them for, and how it all benefits you. Today on the program, we have a special interview during the roundtable discussion. We are going to talk about the future of Fort McPherson military base. It is set for closure in a few years, and the question is, what will be done with all that property when the military moves out? We'll speak with two key officials involved with the planning of the redevelopment of Fort Mac. Also, I'll have a commentary about the so-called birthday tax, the tax you pay each time you renew your auto license tag. And lastly, we'll say a very special goodbye to a woman who has helped shape our tax office for 3 decades. But first, as always, we'll go to the news desk for a quick update on the latest tax news and other news of note in and around Fulton County. Rick Blaylock is at the Tax News and Information Desk. Hello, Rick.
All right, Commissioner, thank you very much. Before we get started with the news today, we want to send out our best wishes to all the mothers in Fulton County, hoping that you had a wonderful Mother's Day. And by the way, not to leave out Dad, we do want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers in Fulton County, as Father's Day is just around the corner. So now, with that said, let's begin with today's Tax Matters top story. Property assessments and notices have been making their way to your mailboxes as we are now in the annual property tax season. Now, you may disagree with the assessment of your property, and there are ways to object. First, you need to understand that there are 3 elements which go into calculating your tax bill: your property value, your exemption, and the millage or taxing rate. Now, your property value is determined by the Fulton County Board of Tax Assessors. If you believe you can sell your property for the value set by the Board of Assessors, then it's considered a fair value. That means your investment is increasing, and there really is no reason to appeal the assessment. However, if your evaluation is excessive or unfair, then by all means appeal to the Board of Assessors, and if necessary, go on to the Board of Equalization. Now, if you go to the Board of Equalization, you do that only because you lost your appeal with the assessors. Now, for more information, you can call the Tax Assessor's Office. Here's the number, 404-612-6440. Again, you cannot appeal a tax bill that is sent out by the Tax Commissioner, but you can appeal the assessment used to ultimately calculate your tax bill. Now, also in the news today, a final farewell to one of the longest-serving employees of the county and in the Tax Commissioner's office. After almost nearly 30 years of service, Angie Lewis shut down her calculator for the final time a few weeks back, and the tax office staff gave her a retirement celebration of a lifetime. Let's take a look at some of the sights and sounds.
Yes, I rejoice today, for I shall recover it all. Holy, holy, holy is our God.
just want to say one thing. Take what the Lord has given you and enjoy it. You have a beautiful family, beautiful friends, and a long life ahead of you. Live healthy and enjoy.
From a distance, she's poised. There's beauty, there's grace, there's eloquence. But when you get up close with Angie, when you work with her day to day, there's integrity, there's tenaciousness, and there's an absolute commitment to being compassionate to every employee.
And I thank you so much for the opportunity you gave me. I thank you for everything you've taught me. This is a very hard day for me.
We wish for you a retirement of tranquility, one that offers you many opportunities of unhurried visits, opportunities for walks without direction, opportunities for gardens that are wild and beautiful and full of pleasure, opportunities for aspiring new awakenings that you desire, an opportunity for your retirement of your discretion. God bless you.
And whereas Angie Lewis retired on Tuesday, May 1st, 2007, after 28 and a half years of service with the Office of the Tax Commissioner of Fulton County, Georgia, now therefore be it resolved, on behalf of the thousands of citizens in Fulton County, Georgia, I, Arthur E. Ferdinand. Get all my stuff in. Tax Commissioner of Fulton County, Georgia, express my deepest gratitude to Angie Lewis for her dedication and committed work to Fulton County taxpayers, and congratulate her on the occasion of her retirement, and do hereby proclaim Tuesday, May 1st, 2007 as Angie Lewis Appreciation Day in Fulton County, Georgia.
It's just a wonderful thing to just being able to stay here and get this honor. And I want to encourage all of you, do what's best for you. You can't get angry and do things. I'm doing this because I have prayed about it. And when you pray about something, they say if you're going to pray, don't worry. If you're going to worry, don't pray. So I have prayed about this thing, and it is the best thing for me right now.
Once again, congratulations to Angie Lewis, a well-deserved retirement. Well, that's all the news for now, but stay tuned. Tax Commissioner Arthur Ferdinand sits down with some of the key leaders who are working to give Fort McPherson an extreme makeover long after the military leaves. It's a huge economic development project that will affect your taxes and your money. You don't want to miss this roundtable discussion. It's next on Tax Matters.
Mrs. Johnson, good to see you again. This is Mike. You can trust him. He looks just like you. Plus, 2 against 1 is more intimidating when we force someone to sign a loan.
And I'll be sucking up to you in order to keep up the illusion.
So, here are your low monthly payments and interest rate as we promised. Here's where they triple. The rest of this stuff, don't think a lawyer can read this. It protects us. Make sure we get your home when you can't pay us back.
Such a lovely house.
Yeah. But don't worry. We're going to sell you credit life insurance. You don't really need it, but...
Puts lots of cash in our pockets.
You look nervous. We better hurry and get you to sign. Or I'll pretend to ruin your credit with one phone call.
Predatory lenders are never this easy to spot. Call us and protect yourself with the facts.
You're watching Tax Matters with Arthur Ferdinand. Next up, candid talk at the Tax Commissioners' Roundtable discussion.
Welcome back to Tax Matters. Today for our roundtable discussion, we are going to talk about the future of the neighborhoods and the land area of Fort McPherson. The base is set to close in a few years, and now the question is, what will happen to all that valuable land? Joining us to talk about the subject is Jack Spratt, the Executive Director of Fort McPherson Planning Local Development Authority, and Richard Holmes, a board member of the authority, who is also a vice president of the Southern Company. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today.
Well, glad to be here.
It's my pleasure. Before we begin our discussion, let's get a little background on Fort McPherson and how the redevelopment is being planned.
Fort McPherson, a 488-acre military facility located in southwest Atlanta, Georgia, became the first permanent Army installation in the Southeast on May 4th of 1889. Today, historic Fort Mac is home to headquarters for the U.S. Army Forces Command, the 3rd U.S. Army, and the U.S. Army Reserve Command. The historic district of the post sits on 33 acres of land. The 40 buildings that comprise the historic district are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. But now Fort McPherson is being closed under the Base Realignment and Closure Act, or BRAC, of 2005.
And that's a good conversation in and of itself.
And people are meeting on a regular basis to help plan what will replace the Army base. At William Finch Elementary School, everyone from civic, business, and community groups reviewed drawings, sketches, and photos of what could be, of what they want the base to be.
The point I'm making is, friends, that this is the Army's property. They're going to close
The group in
it.
charge of the planning is the McPherson Planning Local Redevelopment Authority, a nonprofit corporation serving as the primary link between the Defense Department, the installation, the community, and federal and state agencies for all base closure matters. The authority is managed by a board of directors consisting of 11 members, of who 8 are appointed by the mayor of the city of Atlanta, and the 3 others are the mayor of Atlanta herself, the mayor of East Point, Joe Macon, and the chairman of the Fulton County Commission, John Eves. The authority's board has been seeking comment from the public so it can ensure a plan that the community embraces. Joyce Shepard is the Atlanta City Council member who represents the area in question.
We need to make sure that the community has enough time to do what they need to do in terms of community input. So I'm just going to say, I don't want us to be able to have to put this in a week period, 3 or 4 days, and we can say that's community input. Just like they've had enough time to do your analysis, I think it's also fair that the community has enough time to do what's necessary to make sure that they get true, good community input.
The idea, of course, is to come up with a consensus, not an easy task, which is why public meetings such as this are so important. And time is moving fast. The deadline's in front of the planning board, June 22nd of 2007. The reuse and redevelopment plan must be submitted to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, for approval of the Community Outreach Plan, and then to the Defense Department for purposes of environmental remediation and property transfer. Then, later this year, on December 31st, the work of the Planning Authority must be completed, and then an Implementation Local Redevelopment Authority will be formed to administer the transfer and redevelopment of the property. By September 14th of 2011, the U.S. Army must cease operations and vacate the base by this date. A lot to do. Reporting from Southwest Atlanta, I'm Tina Douglas for Tax Matters.
Mr. Spratt, let's begin with you. I know you have held a similar position in South Carolina.
Yes.
What makes this redevelopment different than dealing with the private sector? I know we now have to deal with the U.S. military. What makes this different from a normal development of property?
Well, you know, in a lot of cases, it is the same as a normal development of property, but you've answered the question yourself. It's the involvement of the military. It's the involvement of the Army. The base is closing under BRAC, which is Base Realignment and Closure Law. And, of course, that law is very restrictive and very specific in how it has to be handled. You have various screening processes you have to go through, and the bottom line is that the Army owns the property and is their intent to sell the property, and they're allowing the community to give its input and its planning as a part of that process.
So we just can't do whatever we want with it without...
Well, obviously not. That's how it's similar to any other development that is there. The purpose for the planning process at this point is fairly limited. The Army needs that information to determine how the property will be cleaned up. Now, we understand it. There's not a lot of contamination or environmental problems out there, but still they have to make the decisions as to how that might be addressed. And then next they have to understand what possible tools they could use for the transfer or the sale of this property, because those are a mixed bag of choices that they have. And then, of course, we have to use it to go through the various screening process that I mentioned.
Very good. Mr. Holmes, you want to add to what Mr. Spratt has said?
No, I think he was pretty much on target. I mean, the difference is just you're involving the government, and no offense to those in the government, but there's a little bit different kind of red tape. And I think that's really the critical part. And as he mentioned, there are certain laws. The SPRAC law dictates how the community should be involved. But at the end of the day, it's about creating a sale for the military. And at the end of the day, for the community, it's about some type of development. So they're trying to make sure all of that's compatible and there's a win-win all the way around.
Very good. Now, Mr. Holmes, you are involved with the Beltline Tax Allocation District. You're also a senior vice president in Southern Company.
Yes.
What are you doing to make sure that the community is involved in this project and has a say in what we do?
That's a very good question, because this project right now, Fort McPherson, is a U.S. military site, and it really is not a part of the state of Georgia or Fulton County or City of Atlanta. But once it's sold, it becomes a part of the community. And what we want to do is make sure that we take this golden opportunity, 488 acres of land, to mesh that into the community. So the community is being involved by we're allowing them to we're having different meetings with the community, understanding what their concerns and what their issues are. But before that, we took all the community plans that have gone for City of Atlanta and for East Point to see what that community was asking for in terms of development in their area. So based on that, as well as talking to individual community members, we've had several meetings where we've allowed the community to come in and to give us their firsthand thoughts of how we should bring those walls down and how we should take advantage of this golden opportunity. So there's tremendous community involvement from elected officials as well as individual constituents that live in the immediate area in both East Point and the City of Atlanta.
Well, you know, 488 acres is a pretty big piece of land. It's about 3.5 times the size of Atlantic Station.
That's correct.
I know in terms of Atlantic Station, that has had a tremendous impact on the immediate neighborhood. I assume there's going to be a lot of tax implications for the community around Fort McPherson. How do you see this benefiting the community as a whole, both Atlanta and East Point?
Well,
I'll ask you first, and then I'd like to hear your comments, Jack.
Sure. First and foremost, obviously, we hope to have an improvement there where there will be taxes that'll be coming to the various areas. But most importantly, it's just, as I said earlier, it's a golden opportunity. When we take those military walls down, we want to create an environment there that, one, we want to create jobs. That's an area that really needs jobs. We want to create jobs, but we want to create something that's sustainable over time, not something that comes in and someone gains a lot of wealth just from an immediate development, but we want to create something that, one, creates jobs. It will help grow the community in a very positive light. We're not talking about creating where we're displacing folks, but we're talking about merging inside the community and having a growth. You can look at it similar to other opportunities. Take what was done with Eastlake and the Eastlake community. That community was one somewhat downtrodden, a lot of negative elements, and when the redevelopment of that golf course and some of the surrounding areas, now it's blossomed into a very positive community. You know, we want to learn from that and learn from other situations whereby we can create, one, jobs, but also create community where this now becomes a part of the community, not a separate entity that's bounded by walls, but taking those walls down where it's immersed. And so we want to make it blend and over time have the impact of growing the entire community and really the entire South Side. We want a signature statement that everyone will be very proud to say that's in our community. That's what we're trying to do.
Very good, very good. Mr. Spratt, do you have any?
He's absolutely right. When we were initially meeting with folks as we started this entire process, the two things that we heard was an employment center. We need jobs down there across the entire spectrum of wage earnings, and we want a place that is not necessarily Atlantic Station, but a place that you can live, work, learn, and play. And that has been consistent throughout everything that we have heard. And obviously that value is going to get created through a combination of perhaps public and private, where you're not only adding 488 acres that have never been on the tax rolls, but you could have millions and millions of dollars of investment out there to be able to create these things.
Very good. I know it's too early to be definitive about some of the things that are going to be there, but maybe you could give us some idea of what you're thinking.
All right.
What could people, at a minimum, expect to be there, and what's not going to happen in the area?
All right. We'll use visual type things so if we can describe.
I'm not going to
some of
commit
the
you.
things. We won't throw any PowerPoints up there
That's right.
to be able to look at this. But it's just as Richard said, this employment center, let's visualize that. Now, it could be larger or smaller, depending on how lucky we are, how fortunate we are to maybe bring in some sort of an anchor knowledge-based industry. That's what we tried to do from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, one of our principles was, let's try to go after knowledge-based industry for this area. And I think you understand what we mean by that.
Right.
We're very close to Georgia Tech, to CDC, to Emory, the other institutions. You're 10 minutes from the busiest airport in the world. We feel like, just like the Research Triangle, there's opportunity here to bring in some kind of a knowledge-based industry to jumpstart this. Well, we understand that could or could not happen. We don't have anything that's committed at this point, but we're still trying to set our sights high to see if we can possibly do that. So assuming that that's done, you might have a 150-acre portion of this, the portion in closer to the MARTA station, which is the more valuable property, obviously, to have that sort of a knowledge-based industry. From there, you would branch out to the things that are obvious for this kind of development, like Atlantic Station. We would have a retail area, but we're thinking a little bit more unique here in that anyone that's driven down Lee Street, right by the fort, you know that it's almost like a tunnel. On one side, you've got the MARTA rail up in the air and that fence line. Then you've got the fence line of Fort Mac on that side. So visualize, if the fence is down, you bring Lee Street into the boundary of the fort and create a little main street down there that is Lee Street. As a matter of fact, talk is that the corridor for the new streetcar that's being proposed would come down, to begin at that point. So there, visualize a little main street with wide sidewalks and umbrellas for restaurants on either side, and it actually would be a Peachtree Street address for that retail area. And you would have some high density in that area for people to live, work, and have stores and retail there. So
very good. Is there a telephone number or website that people could use to get more information about this redevelopment of Fort McPherson?
Yes, sir. McPhersonRedevelopment.com. And the numbers are on there, 404-614-8318. They can call us at that number.
Very good. Gentlemen, thanks for taking the time to be here on Tax Matters. This has been very helpful to me and to the citizens of Fulton County. Thank you very much, Jack.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Richard. There's so much more ahead, so stay tuned. Tax Matters will be right back. Gentlemen.
The Fulton County Tail Line is available to assist citizens of unincorporated Fulton County to maintain a safe and desirable living and working environment. Code violations include, but are not limited to, parking on the grass, junked cars, and abandoned property. Sounds familiar? If you see something out of compliance with the code, you can call 404-730-TELL. That's 404-730-8355. All
Across America, Service Learning is helping students improve their grades and their communities. Service Learning makes school exciting by connecting the classroom with community service projects.
Before Service Learning, I was just an ordinary student causing mischief during class. After Service Learning started, I got so involved into it, I started paying attention more, picked up my grades.
Okay, very good.
Service Learning absolutely drives academic success.
Working together, students solve real problems, build new skills, and apply their knowledge in a whole new way.
The great thing about Service Learning is it gives you this opportunity to go out into the world and do things hands-on.
Inside the classroom and out, Service Learning opens new doors and brings learning to life. Service Learning can make a difference in your school. Visit Learn and Serve America at learnandserve.gov to find out how.
Tax Matters continues. Here again is Tax Commissioner Arthur Ferdinand.
Before we leave you today, we want to take a moment to say thanks to a very special person. My Chief Deputy Angie Lewis is retiring after 28 and a half years serving the people of Fulton County. Starting out as a cashier, she worked her way up and has served in every key management position in the office. In 1998, I named her the Chief Deputy Tax Commissioner. She has served the people of Fulton County with distinction. As Chief Deputy, she was an able executive with a fierce loyalty to the office and to me, always putting service above self. As a woman, she was a towering role model to all the women who work in our office, serving as a mentor to many, and a glowing example of what can be accomplished and the heights one can achieve by dedicating oneself to learning your craft and striving to be the best at what you do. To me, she was indeed the perfect Chief Deputy, and with her leaves the most dedicated civil servant in Fulton County. Her departure is indeed the county's loss. On behalf of all the employees in the Tax Commissioner's office, we bid you a fond farewell. You will always be a member of my team. Angie, if this was baseball, I would retire your number. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Tax Matters. I hope you enjoyed the program and learned a little something new. I'm Tax Commissioner Arthur Ferdinand saying so long, and remember, if it is your money, tax matters.
McGruff the crime dog here. We've all heard of identity theft. Now I'm going to show you how those thieves do it. Watch. He's secretly photographing her credit card with his cell phone. Now watch. They pretend they have a package to deliver, and while they're trying to fit it in the mailbox, they're taking her credit card payments and other paid bills. Now watch this one. What you consider garbage, thieves consider gold. Guard all your personal information carefully. Use a secure mailbox and shred your credit card records and bills. To learn how to protect yourself from identity theft, go to weprevent.org. Keep your identity to yourself and help take a bite out of crime. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the U.S. Department of Justice, and the Crime Prevention Coalition of America.
Bachelor number 1, how would you advise me to structure my investment portfolio?
I would say be cautious and invest in government bonds, money markets, and CD accounts.
Bachelor number 2?
I'd say it's your age to invest fully in high-yield stock.
And bachelor number 3?
I'd diversify your investments. It would make your overall portfolio more balanced and can minimize your risk. Okay, there you go. Now it's time for you to make a date.
Bachelor number 3.
Bachelor number 3.
Remember, make a date today to diversify your portfolio and choose to save.
Reviewing Fulton County News, I'm Michael Billups. Voting in the election to determine cityhood for the Chattahoochee Hill Country part of South Fulton got underway this week. The proposed election on the incorporation of the other parts of South Fulton is postponed due to a miswording of the bill in the Georgia legislature. There are only 2 voter precincts involved in the Chattahoochee Hill Country election. Citizens have 3 ways to cast ballots in the election: absentee by mail, absentee in person, which includes the advance or early voting period from June 11th through the 15th. And voters can cast ballots at their precinct poll locations on Election Day, June 19th, when the polls will be open from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. You can get complete details on the elections at myfultoncountyga.us. Citizens have an opportunity to comment on the 2007 property tax millage rate